Uncensored. Welcome to Hauntoverse Uncut. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Hauntoverse Uncut. I am, of course, your host for this evening, Andy Robarchuk, joined by my illustrious co-host, Mr. Brian Bass. How's it going tonight, Brian?
It's going great. I mean, we were just talking before the show about our adventures on Halloween Horror Nights and some of the things we've got coming up. But, man, I just want to dive more into what you were talking about. I'm so excited that it is finally time. We've seen the events. They're incredible. I mean, let's just go straight into it.
Yeah, for sure. So, now, a lot of you guys might not know this because we kind of kept it under wraps for as long as possible, but I had the opportunity this year to attend the opening media night for Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood for the first time ever. And I was pretty excited by it. I was excited because, last year was my first year going to Horror Nights Orlando, and I wanted to see how Hollywood did their event differently. And I really had no idea about a lot of stuff going into Hollywood, where I had never really looked at a lot of pictures of even the park by itself. I had no idea that the crazy layout that this park has, which if you haven't been there, have you been to Hollywood before? Oh my God.
I have not.
Oh, you haven't experienced anything because the best way to describe it is that the entrance to the park is on top of a mountain, and the biggest section, or where all the rides are at least, are down at the bottom of the mountain. And there's a series of 4 escalators that take you up. It's a 15-minute process to basically get from the top of the park to the bottom of the park. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
And then for Horror Nights, not only do you have those 2 levels separating each other, but now a number of the haunts are on the back lot. So you have to take another tram to get to the back lot, which is another 5-minute process. So just navigating the park was a lot of fun, trying to figure out where things were. And people are like telling me, oh yeah, it's down the back lot, or it's down on the lower lot, or it's up on the upper lot. I'm like, what are they talking about? Why can't they just tell me which way to go?
I have no idea. That's awesome.
So anyway, so we get to the event. I went out to California with our good friend Dason, and Dason is a huge supporter of Uncut. He basically watches all the shows. And we went out there together. He had some time. I had an extra pass. So we went out to Hollywood, and we were able to film 3 of the haunts. So we get there, and Hollywood does a huge red carpet event. As expected. It's Hollywood. There's celebrities there. They're going to come to the event. It's a way to get the celebrities out. It's a way to get, people talking a little bit. So they did this huge red carpet event, and we weren't technically on the red carpet. We were like right outside. But it was a lot of fun seeing the celebrities. Like David Arquette was there, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Oh, wow. David Arquette. Also probably more famous for being in movies and stuff. But yeah, he's a former champ.
Probably.
So we saw him walking in. Travis Barker of Blink-182 we saw walking in. Tyrese Gibson of Fast and the Furious fame and any other movie that you've probably seen over the last 5 years. He's been in. Who else was there? If you really follow Walking Dead, Insidious, there were a ton of actors and actresses from those franchises as well. So they had a lot of these younger stars out there. So it was like this big thing. It was a lot of fun. It was fun to see all the stars come in. Being from Chicago, you don't really see a lot of celebrities every day, and being out there is kind of like, whoa, look at all the celebrities. Yeah. They actually attend the event. It was funny. Walking into Crimson Peak, David Arquette was standing behind us in line. So,
what?
Yeah, so he was standing behind us, and he was just talking and whatever. So the first thing we did actually in the haunt is we actually got the media escort to go film some of those, and at some point, we have some video footage. We got some highlights. We're not going to post a lot, but we're going to post a little bit. And we'll roll some of those packages here for you coming up. But, going back to my original story of not understanding the park, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to put you on these vans. We're going to drive you out to the back lot and we're going to, escort you through the first two houses back there and then bring you to the lower lot to go through This Is the End. So I'm like thinking to myself, like, me and Dason are sitting in the car. Both of us have never been to Hollywood. And we're like driving, and we're going nowhere. It's like 15 minutes in the car. And I'm like, I said to Dason, I'm like, do these people know where they're going? And I'm like, no, it wasn't them who didn't know where they were going. It was me who didn't know where we were going, because after having understood the park, I now know why it took us 15 minutes to get to the lower lot, trying to traverse down a mountain in a car. So anyway, the first house we went through was Crimson Peak. And it's funny because Crimson Peak I wasn't too excited about. Like, I know that you said that you were like super stoked about Crimson Peak and the whole concept. And, I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to film this house because they gave me an option because I couldn't film all the houses because there just wasn't enough time. And they said, you know what? Rank your top three. So I picked Crimson Peak in that. One, because you said that you were really interested in it. I thought, well, maybe that's something we would want to show here.
Yep.
And two, I said, this is one of the houses that is not going to be over in Orlando this year. So maybe this might be the only experience that we ever get with Horror Nights in Crimson Peak. We don't know for sure. There's a possibility, I guess, that it transfers over to Orlando next year, because we've seen that happen on a number of occasions. Yeah. Probably not, though. So I said, you know what, this is one I definitely want to film for all those reasons. And let me say that was an excellent call on your part, Brian, because it was fantastic, I thought.
Awesome.
So at this
I'm glad
point,
to hear that, too, because I was just nervous that it could fall flat because there's so much hype for that movie, right, to take that concept. So I'm happy that it was worth not only going through, but actually capturing and using one of those. Because, as some of you might know, that's a big choice. Which three do we want to document? Do we want to go through? It's a very cool opportunity that nobody's going to get. And I'm glad that it worked out in your favor.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what I liked about it was it blended a whole different range of scare types in the house that you could tell that it had the money. So it had great sets. It had great interiors. That the mannequins and just everything in there was very well done. They had these video screens all over. So like you're going to see in when we roll this package, you're going to see one shot of like this circular window that the glass behind it is actually a video screen. So stuff would happen behind it, which I thought was a really cool effect,
awesome.
just to amp up the technology in there. But, they also did pretty simple stuff too, where, there's a guy, and to me, I don't know for sure what was happening because, it's, touching in haunted houses is kind of, a no-no a little bit. But I Hollywood, I felt in general, just to make a blanket statement, I think they play a little looser with the rules there that you would have at like maybe like in Orlando or something, that they're a little looser out there with everything they do. So at one point there's people waving stuff in your ears in Crimson Peak. There's classic pop outs. They like we were talking about before, they love the pop out at Orlando, the boo holes, the pop outs. You can pretty much assume, at Hollywood, you can pretty much assume that every transition you're going to get somebody popping out at you. It's just what they do, which I think is really cool because it bridges the transitions between the rooms good. Sometimes Orlando, you run into the transition is the security guard telling you to go, let's move. And that is the transition.
It is, and they were, just to comment on that, the three houses I went through this other night, it was bad. It was almost like you couldn't even get to watch and enjoy. So I love that fact that, instead we'll put a scare card. We'll scare you along instead of just waving a little stick at you.
Absolutely. And I think it's more effective, and they do things to make you move forward. So, and the one thing, if you read any manual on how to run a haunted house, it's, you can tell people to move faster or you can make people move faster. And the way you make people move faster is you scare them forward. And it's really an effective tool for all haunters to use is scare them forward, make them move into the next room. And I thought Hollywood was really effective with what they did. And I'll tell you this other thing. In general, Hollywood, sometimes I felt like they were touching me, but it could be my imagination. But I'll tell you what, they got closer to your personal space than any other scare actor I've ever been in contact with. Like, there are people that will stick their hand and it'll feel like it's right, like that far away from your nose. And it's just like right there in your face. And it's really, disconcerting a little bit with the violation of the personal space, So Crimson Peak, and like I said the video screens already. They had the other thing they had is they had mechanical props that would trigger when you walked by that would scare you. So it wasn't even like an actor doing it. It was just mechanical props doing it. And oh my God, it is just so cool. I really, really enjoyed Crimson Peak.
That is awesome, because that's something I noticed. I think maybe one, I could be mistaken, at Orlando. That's something that's not utilized. If you go to a local haunt, you'll find way too many of those. That's all you get, honestly. But what you're describing at Crimson Peak reminds me of Dead End in Orlando. It's almost like, because they have this, what Crimson Peak is a ghost story essentially at this house. It's not out yet, but the setup, it's almost like an homage. And you talk about the video screens to the old school haunted houses, that concept of the mechanical scares, the pop out scares, and utilizing, maybe instead of a movement or, something up top, it's a video screen. They're taking those concepts, and a house that has that many elements to it, that makes me so happy to hear that you just have those foot triggers or, mechanical triggers that will get you every time, because you're going to be on edge going through something like that. So that's great that it sounds like they went above and beyond on that house. So I can't wait to see all the footage from it.
I felt that it was the one haunt at the event that could seamlessly fit into an Orlando setting, because we all know the difference. We all know that Orlando drops big time money on the haunts. Hollywood drops big money in comparison to other places, but at the end of the day, Hollywood is not dropping the money that Orlando is. I don't think. Is that right? That Orlando outspends pretty much everyone?
I would have to agree on that. I don't know the exact numbers, but from what I've heard and from people I know who work on both, that would be the general consensus.
Yeah. So we're going to roll a little highlight package right now of Crimson Peak. So, it's dark in there. There weren't a ton of lights. So, I'm sorry for some of the quality, but I think you'll get a really good sense of the house and just give you a good taste to make you want some more. So let's check that out right now.
The first time I saw him, I was 10 years old. It was my mother's.
So that was Crimson Peak. This next house I want to talk about is the next house we actually walked through, and that is Aliens versus Predator, AVP. Now this house,
and I'm gonna stop you right here. This was the house you were like, you wanted to go to Hollywood because you loved this house so much in Orlando. Like, this was, the big. So I wanna know. I know obviously it's good. What were noticeable differences? Just, I know you're going to go on about it, but just something to incorporate, catch our viewers up that this was, I know you've been talking about this house as much as I've been talking about Crimson Peak. So
Well, the biggest difference is that whereas Orlando's was basically set on a space station, on a space shuttle, that you got that space theme throughout the whole haunt. Like, you never felt like you were on Earth.
Yeah.
This one was very Earth-based. So it actually follows the story more of Aliens versus Predator Requiem, which is the second one. So it follows that a little bit more. So basically, you enter into the first room, and you're entering into the space shuttle, and you're going through the areas where it's a Predator space shuttle. You see some face huggers that I got some great video of there, and then you go into this chamber of all the trophies of the Predator, and there's a Predator laying out on the table. That's kind of the extent of the space element that you're going to get is right at the start. And then you're basically going through, Earth-based scenes that, are really, really cool. But nothing was ever going to top the Orlando version. I should just go out and say that the Orlando version was, I would say, almost perfect for what I wanted it to be. The space theme, walking through the different areas of the ship, the 7-foot tall Predator that's whipping his, dreadlocks around. It was just perfect from start to finish, especially the finish of last year's, where you actually had to get down on the ground, crawl out, and there was an alien on top of you. You could not have captured the feel of those movies any better than what Orlando did. So I think Hollywood said, why even try? Let's go a completely different road. Let's do let's do the Earth-based story. And you know what? I think it worked pretty well. I was really happy with it. It's funny that the order in which we kind of went through these houses was the order in which I kind of liked them, to be honest with you.
That's awesome.
So it was kind of like going through the last house is a bit of a bummer because you're like, oh, well, that one I went through first was really the best. It's all been downhill since Crimson Peak. So, there's a few awesome scenes with the aliens busting through windows, eviscerating people. There's one room where there's people stuck to the walls and they're in like those cocoon things. Nice. So it was very cool. The other criticism I'll give to it is that I thought it was way too alien based and not as much Predator based. But that's personal preference. I like Predator more. Obviously, the Alien fans out there are going to love this, more probably. Because I thought the Orlando one might have been more Predator-based, and this one is definitely more Alien-based.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you get the Queen Alien, and that is just fantastic. That is amazing.
That's awesome.
It is so big. It's really, really big. I can't even describe how big it was. It's really it just overpowers the room. It's huge
for all the Orlando fans. Sorry there.
So I would say I have a question
for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do the lengths of the houses compare? Especially taking a house that was exactly the same in terms of theme and everything. Shorter, longer, on par?
Shorter. I would say in general, shorter would be my answer. I think the perfect example of that would be Halloween, that I'll talk about a little bit later. But I would say in general, they were shorter. But that's everything in the park. That everything in the park feels truncated because of space. So we did Jurassic Park in the dark, which was an awesome experience. If you haven't done that, I don't know. Do they change the ride at Orlando during horror? No, because it's at Islands Adventure, so they wouldn't. So it wouldn't make any sense to change the ride. So basically what they do at Hollywood is you go through the ride generally the same. It's much shorter, especially the first boat part. But once you get into the indoor portion, I felt that was a little bit longer. And and they basically have strobe lights going through the whole thing, and Welcome to the Jungle playing the whole time.
Cool.
So it's like this like cult. It's like this cult, like people are like singing with it,
That's fun.
Like it was like this whole cult like atmosphere that was a lot of fun. But it's a good example. Everything feels shorter at the park just because they don't have
with the
same space.
with the magnetic brake run splashdown.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the houses in general felt shorter. I don't know if they were though. I just felt like they felt shorter to me, having been through Orlando last year, where some of the houses feel like they go on forever, like the Walking Dead house, where you feel like you've been there for 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm. The Walking Dead house went on. I'll tell you something. The 3D house this year felt that way. Honestly, a few of the houses felt that way this year. I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't over yet, and maybe just because they're that intense or that scary.
Yeah.
But would it? I mean, did you guys go through? Was it a pretty quick walkthrough? But I imagine you have all these people doing walkthroughs with videos, so they're probably not walking any faster than the guests.
It was a very that I did not get a good feel for, because it was an interesting night. There were so many press there. When we were filming, they gave us so much leeway with filming. It was almost bordered on the ridiculous, that we were, I suspect, were holding up lines pretty badly. Now that I think about it, other times when we walk through as just guests and not media and filming, we got stopped a few times too with, to a dead stop, in the haunt, which is a little awkward with people still trying to be in character and you standing there being like, okay, let's take selfies now. So it was weird.
It's awkward on both ends, I can promise you.
Yeah. So that I did not get a good feel for, but you know what? I just felt that people, it's hard to say. I felt that it had a nice clip to it, that there was a nice pace walking through most of the houses when we were walking through as guests. There were a few times where I felt it was a little slow, but you get that all the time at Orlando, where you always feel like you're stopped or you're crawling through it. And I felt at least here you could find spaces of openness. But then it would always like back up at a point and then open up again and then back up. So it was really weird. It was a weird pacing, but generally I liked it. So AVP was fun. Maybe at this point we show a little video package here of some of the highlights of that haunt, to show you guys what happened in there.
Yeah.
we actually got to film officially was This Is the End. Now, a lot of people were out there saying this is going to be the stupidest thing ever created. They were like, how is that even a haunt? It's just a comedy. And, some people out there, I'm not going to name names like Pat East, but he hates James Franco. And I don't know how you hate James Franco. So, you know what? It was a 3D house, and I'll be honest with you, I really enjoyed the hell out of This Is the End. And I don't know why, because there wasn't a whole ton going on in there. You have your classic scenes from the movie, the exorcism of Jonah Hill. There was a lot of Jonah Hill, and I couldn't figure out if some of them were mechanical and some of them were actors, because it was the Jonah Hill character was throughout the whole thing, and he was doing some crazy stuff. I will say this though, the ending to this haunt is both great and not great, because a lot of people were expecting a certain ending to happen. But that ending did not happen, yes. But we got a different ending that might have been just as equally as good. So I'm not quite sure. Yeah. So I don't want to ruin the surprise for anyone. But I'll just say this. It's not the ending a lot of people were expecting. It's a different ending to that. Because I think the ending that people were expecting would be too corny and too happy. And that's not what this event is about. So you got a quite different ending than that. So I'll leave it at that. But
that's awesome.
So once again, this was lots of comedy where Hermione Granger, pops out of the wall with an axe trying to get you. So she's definitely in it, which I thought was classic. Jonah Hill. All the characters. Surprisingly though, I did not see Seth Rogen anywhere, and I don't know. Maybe I just missed it or didn't understand what was going on. There was a lot of weird stuff going on in this haunt too, where I'm not quite sure what they were referencing, but they were referencing something. But the transitions once again, very nicely done. That you had demons inside there. That were, clawing at you and trying to scratch at you. So that was cool. I thought the demons were really well done. And then in other transitions, they actually had video screens again. And they put up, have you seen This Is the End?
Yes.
Okay. So you know how at the one point in the movie where they do the camcorder and they record their thoughts on what's happening?
Yeah.
Okay. So in some of the transitions, they actually played those, and I couldn't tell if they were from the movie or if they were recorded specially for this, but they definitely played those to set you in the mood of what's going on. And I'll tell you what, those were classic.
That's awesome.
So I really enjoyed that touch because it gives you the sense of the actors in the haunt, but them not actually being in the haunt. So it's kind of cool like that. But I'll say this, I don't know what a good 3D haunt is, because I would say that, I had never really been in a good 3D haunt. I think you can enjoy this haunt with or without the 3D glasses. So I don't think it's necessary to have them.
See, I'm going to stop you there, because that is what makes a good 3D haunt. Penn and Teller is the only haunt at HHN I've done until maybe this year that I thought was, without 3D glasses, it's still a scary, fun, hilarious, crazy, amazing house. The other two relied heavily on the 3D in terms of the neon colors, the painting, the costumes jumping out at you in the way they need to. And I felt that for the disorientation factor, they're built a special way. Especially Alice, this one's trippy. It's very trippy. But I don't know if I would enjoy it fully without the glasses, if it would be. So I know you say you don't, but that is probably the quality I look for most, is your 3D house should be awesome and be crazy with the 3D, but should still be an awesome house and not rely on the 3D for the storytelling and the scares. So I'm really glad to hear that.
So the 3D effects, you got the black lights on the walls. Everything's neon. stuff would pop out at you, looking at the walls. But I don't think, like you said, to enjoy the haunt, you didn't really need to have the 3D glasses. And I walked through the first time when I was filming. I said, well, there's no way I can film it and have the 3D glasses on. So I experienced it the first time without the 3D glasses whatsoever. And to be honest, I thought it was just as good as it was with the 3D glasses. So I thought that's
awesome.
one that, people who are looking for a super scary experience, you're not going to get that there. It's not going to get you. It's barely even going to startle you. But what it is going to do, it's going to entertain the hell out of you. And I think that was kind of the point. I don't think it was designed to, like, there's some stuff that might get you here and there. I know I got scared a few times by stuff I wasn't expecting, but generally speaking, it's for entertainment. It's funny. You're going to have a good time going through. It's a break from what everything else is at the park. Especially for that event.
That's what I was going to say. Is that's what we've talked about before in the past, is breaking up the experience of a haunt and the shows and the rides and all to do that. And I don't mind if you dedicate a haunt. I mean, something that Halloween Horror Nights was known for, in Orlando especially, were their comedy houses. They always had a comedy house for a while, and I don't really know if they've kept that up. I'm just, I'm not into. I'd have to go back and look and see. But man, they were hilarious, and they'll startle you, but they're just fun. They're just, hysterically entertaining concepts. That one of my favorite scares of all time, zombie apocalypse, whatever it's called, and it was like teaching you how to be a zombie trainer, and this demon zombie baby popped up against the glass, and it was a zombie baby with blood. Like, it was hilarious, and so I'm glad to hear that you're not gonna, it might not be the scariest, but it's gonna be still entertaining, fun, get you to jump and have a good time. And that leads me to another question for you. In terms of, because I haven't been to Hollywood, and I know a little bit about it, but I dedicated all my time to East Coast haunts. So how would you compare costumes and makeup? I think this is a good house to talk about it, and maybe Alien vs. Predator as well that you just mentioned. But this movie had some cool stuff, and seems like they had some characters where they could have some fun with that. So is it something else that you can kind of tell a difference, or how would you go about that?
Overall, I would say, the one thing that I think I noticed is every house almost likes to have a certain character, and they like to do that character over and over and over. So for Orlando people, maybe like Michael Myers, in the Halloween house last year, where Michael Myers was the one to pop out at you multiple times. Now, that was way over the top, I think. Like, that's an extreme example. But here, you have that element of them putting the same characters, because if you do the same costume, especially when you're doing like a demon in This Is the End, and you're going to see what the demon looks like, where it really doesn't – it's really cool. I love the look of the demon, but I don't know if it perfectly matches what was going on in the movie. It's designed for this. But if you do a costume of that nature, which was very elaborate, and you do multiple of them, it kind of, breaks up the cost of each individual costume. I would say that the costuming was pretty well done overall. The makeup was pretty well done. I can't say with certainty that there was any real drop off of those sort of things. And I should say this, that I think the costuming in things like the scare zones and the makeup in the scare zones were way above what you might have seen at Horror Nights, although it's hard to tell. Because I remember the stilt walkers from last year with the candles in the front zone, and the voodoo area was kind of weak. I'll be honest, it wasn't very strong. And the purge obviously is really cheap to costume. It's almost any fool can do that. So I would say it's on par. I don't think there's enough evidence either way for me to say, oh yeah, one is better than the other. So I would say that's pretty much even. But I think at this point, let's roll a little package of This Is the End and see what that one's all about. Because I think I got some of my best video in this one. So hopefully it doesn't spoil it too much for you.
Jonah Hill is no more. Demon, I say unto thee, the power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you.
Does it, Jay?
The power of Christ compels you.
The power of Christ compelling me? Is that what's happening?
Hey guys, I'm going to sleep now. Nobody come in here and bother me. Shall shine down, and those of good hurt shall be brought into my kingdom of heaven.
Welcome to heaven, motherfuckers.
No, Jack was not at Hollywood this year, but I'm sure you will get your dose of Jack over at Orlando. But no, he was not there. But before we move on to the Terror Tram and to the Scare Zones, I kind of want to just quickly talk about the other three houses that we did. Of those three, I would think Insidious is probably the next best. A few cool things in there. They had they had a really cool hallway that would be backlit with all these floating candles. That was kind of cool. In general, though, I just never got a good sense for the story. It was really, really dark in there. Really hard to take even pictures, let alone to film. So it was good enough. I can't knock it because it's just I've never been an Insidious fan though, to be honest with you. So it's kind of like okay, whatever. And then Walking Dead was interesting.
Oh yeah.
I'm kind of coming off of the marathon known as The Walking Dead last year at Orlando. This felt really short to me because it wasn't 25 minutes long walking through it. But once again, I've seen pictures of Hollywood before, and it's kind of like they like to recycle a lot of their stuff. So they use generally the same props. And The Walking Dead, the whole zombie thing just doesn't get me anymore. And I don't think there was enough uniqueness to The Walking Dead this year to really make it stand out in my mind. Where even though I wasn't a huge fan of The Walking Dead at Orlando last year, the types of scares and the elements that they had in there really made it good. Like it wasn't so much the story, because I could care less about the story going on. It was how they scared people. And there was a few good things in this one, but nothing really, like I said, nothing really jumps to my mind thinking back on it. Which, as we said before, if nothing jumps out at you, you're kind of like, well, was that really a good haunt? I don't know. It was interesting. The facade was kind of cool. And one thing I did like about it, though, is I should say this. So they have the facade, the Terminus facade, and I have some pictures of that. That was really, really cool. And then outside, you have these fences. So you have the facade, then you have this fence, and then you have like this garden, and you're walking into Terminus. And they actually had scare actors in that garden, at least 3, which I thought was really excessive. So it's almost like a room in itself, where before you're even in the haunt, there's scaring going on in view of everyone too, which I thought was really cool, because now people are getting scared and it becomes a community event because people in line are watching all of this happen and they get to witness the whole thing. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's awesome.
And then the last one was Halloween. And, I wrote a whole blog on these, so if you want more in-depth coverage, there's a blog on COASTER.net right now of this. But Halloween was a truncated version of Orlando's last year. So almost a room for room, like you could, there's some new stuff. I won't, I can't say that there was some new stuff, like a kitchen scene. But for the most part, the stuff that you saw in Orlando last year is kind of the stuff that you saw this year with this one. So one noticeable scene that I thought was more effective is the telephone cord choking scene. And in Orlando, it was done with mannequins for the most part, right? Am I right on that? Yes. Here it was done with live actors.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah. So here it was done with live actors.
That's awesome.
Much more effective. And then you move into the tombstone bed scene where you have the Judas Myers tombstone and you have, the dead person. And I'll tell you what, that room got me because I'm standing there taking pictures. And Michael Myers popped out from behind me, was not expecting it. And that one was the scare of the night. It got me the best that time. But for the most part, people in Hollywood are going to love it because it's still amazing. But having been through it last year, it kind of felt very, very of all the houses, it felt the most similar. And most, we're just going to take what Orlando did and maybe make a few things here better or worse. So that was Halloween, which people are going to love it. People are going to love it.
Which again, ultimately isn't terrible. Yeah, I say that's the thing though. At least it's a great house that if they were going to take one and do that, I mean, that's one of the better houses to have. So
yeah. And like I said,
I know Pat East would make a trip out to Hollywood just for it.
Yeah, maybe. Some things I think we're done better, and some things I think we're done a little bit. And it's based on space too. Let's be honest. That Hollywood just doesn't have the space that Orlando does to make big houses. So let's move on to something that I think Hollywood does maybe the best out of anybody, and that is scare zones. My goodness, I have never seen this amount of money poured into a scare zone before. You're talking about a good city block worth of territory, and both sides are completely filled with props. Just completely filled from start to finish.
Awesome.
And then some of them have props in the middle. Some of them have just the side props. So there was 3 main scare zones. You had exterminators, cores, or basically military, and then you had the Dark Christmas. And Dark Christmas was fantastic. Dark Christmas was out of this world amazing. Just the characters that they had in there, the mannequins on the side that were animatronic that would move and like look at you and the music and I think the one point that they really, really did well was the fog. That when so many parks are skimping on fog and not putting enough out there, this place was just pumping more fog into this area. You couldn't see a foot in front of you. It was amazing. And then it would lighten up so that people could scare you.
That's awesome. That's how it should be.
Exactly. You should not be able to stand at one end of a scare zone and see to the other end of the scare zone. And I feel that sometimes at Cedar Fair and at other parks, that's exactly what you can do, and I don't like it. I like to only be able to see a few feet in front of me, and preferably not even that, to be honest with you. So the scare zones I thought were really, really well done. And these areas, I think we got an extensive amount of video for, so I think we might be posting close to full walkthroughs through all 3 of them. And I'll tell you what, Exterminators did something I don't think I'd ever see in my life. They actually had an exterminator with the gun that would shoot into like the ground, that would shoot the spray, and they were spraying people.
Yeah.
and I don't know if it was liquid or just air,
Yes.
but they were definitely spraying people, and people were freaking out. It was classic.
I really hope it was liquid.
Yeah.
Because that's amazing.
So like it's that kind of stuff where I was talking about before with Hollywood playing with the rules a little bit more. You would not see that, I think, at a lot of other places, which I thought was really, really cool. So the scare zones, definitely, and I wasn't even expecting much. Like, we had done all the houses, and, you know, it's getting to the point where, you know, we were there till 2 a.m. or so, and we're getting a little bit tired, and we're like, well, let's just go up to the upper lot, because all the scare zones are in the upper lot. The only house that's up there is Halloween. So it was all 3 scare zones, Halloween, and then the Terror Tram. So they were all on the upper lot. So we're like, well, let's just go through them, and I was just blown away. I was amazed by the scare zones. It's really, I wish other parks would go there to see how it should be done. And just how they extended the borders of the scare zones too, where even though you thought it might be the end of the scare zone, the actors were not afraid to move it, you know, not only feet, but, you know, even you know, maybe even like a whole football field. They were really extending their scare zones, which I thought was kind of cool. And then probably the last thing that I should talk about here tonight is the Terror Tram. And if there is one haunt event,
I want to do it so bad.
Oh my God. If there's one haunt thing that you should do at least once in your life, it is the Terror Tram. I didn't know what to expect.
Oh my God.
So do you know what it's all about? Like,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a fair amount. I've looked into it because it's one of the most unique sounding experiences that they do at a park, and I do. But is it? I can't get through this with a straight face on it. Is it comparable to the haunted car ride, antique car ride at the Nobles?
Oh my goodness! Of course, it wouldn't be a Hauntoverse Uncut show if we didn't bring up the haunted antique cars. Having never been on those, having never been on the haunted antique cars, I can't really speak. But I would just have to imagine that it's no comparison at all. Just gonna go on a limb there and say that it's no comparison at all. But man, I'm just gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave it there and move on because there's no sense in even talking about that. But I will say this: the Terror Tram is something you have to do. You have to do it at least once. And what I didn't realize is the extensiveness of the Terror Tram to begin with. Okay. I thought it was just something you watched on the side of you. Like you would drive through an area, kind of like the haunted train rides that you see at like Great America does like the haunted train ride where there's actors on the side of you. I thought it'd be something more like that, but it's not that at all. I didn't know that there's 2 Terror Trams. That there's actually 2 this year. So there's the upper lot one and then there's a lower lot one. And basically what happens is, and I think it works perfectly with The Purge too. So you could not have asked for a better story than this one. So you get onto the Terror Tram and they entice you in saying that it's the Purge night and that there's these fun activities lined up for you and your whole family. And it actually turns out to be this mass slaughter where they're just trying to get you into this zone to kill you. So you get onto the Terror Tram, you get off, they stop you, and they say, okay, now you have to get off the Terror Tram. And you have to go through a scare zone. And it's like the longest scare zone you've ever seen in your life, where you're just in the middle of like the countryside. Like I don't know where they found this land at, but we always hear that Orlando doesn't have a lot of land because it's a working studio, but they just let you off into like these lives, like into these sets that they just have stored up there. So like the first part, you're just walking through and there's these Purge actors jumping out at you all over the place. Such a cool experience. Then you get back on the tram, you go to another location, they let you off again, and you go through a whole nother long scare zone. and then they put you back on the tram and they finally take you back. But it's the length of it is the impressive part, and the number of actors they have in it is out of this world. There's just so many actors that they have in this, and then the sets, like they have this full-on crashed, full-on, jet airliner that I guess they used in War of the Worlds, and they didn't want to scrap it because it cost so much money to build. And it's just sitting there, and it's this massive airplane, and like they use it in The Purge, and they use it as part of the thing. Obviously, they used it in Walking Dead too, because the Terror Tram the last few years has all been Walking Dead, which I could see totally working with this too. But The Purge, I think, just works so much better because I'm so much more interested. Then when you go to the lower lot, when you go to the back lot to get to like Aliens versus Predator and Crimson Peak, you have to go through another Purge scare zone that is just so cool. So I don't know. I really enjoyed the Terror Tram. I was not expecting what I got. I'm sorry if I ruined it for you. But it's something you have to experience. We'll post a
spoiler alert before this goes up.
Yeah, I don't think we will, but we'll say sorry. We'll just apologize after.
you're like, no, apologize. It's better to ask forgiveness than permission. So.
I'm sorry for rooting for you. But I have to say it's something. It's something you should do at least once in your life. I think, and now I think is a great time because of The Purge.
It sounds so unique. Yeah, it sounds so unique, and you're right. It's got the Walking Dead theme probably works really well. You're right. Yeah. But, I mean, usually when we mention content on the show, one of us feels one way about it. I'm an Aliens guy, you're a Predator guy, I'm an Insidious guy. But we both hate The Walking Dead. We're done with it. Get it out of here. Zombies don't scare me. Hey, there's that echo again. But such a cool concept to have, to get off the tram, go through. I mean, even if you say what happens on it, I don't think you could ruin it because that's just such a unique experience to have. And every year I've been jealous of it that that Orlando doesn't do it or no other park has something like that. So that's something I think you said it. You have to go out and see it.
And there's so many like mini sets set up that you not only walk by but walk through. That it's just there's so much going on there. And it's just so well done. I'll be honest. It was the highlight of the night, and we almost missed it because I'm like, well, if there's if there's one thing we missed, it's probably the Terror Tram. It's all the way up on the upper lot. We were on the last tram out. We were the last tram of the night. And
what? No way.
Yes, we almost missed it. And I would have been so irritated. Obviously I wouldn't have known, but I'm like getting off the ride and I'm like thinking to myself, oh my God, what if I would have missed that? It would have changed my whole perspective on the entire event because that really put a cap on the event. Now the other cool thing that they did is the girl that was auctioning people last year that they got in trouble for making some comments towards younger girls. She was actually in the Terror Tram queue line, welcoming people in, telling people welcome back, and she was making some pretty funny jokes too in there. Nothing off color because I think but she was back, and I thought that was an excellent use of her. And then once again, scares in the queue line too, where once you think it's over, it's really not over. And I was really impressed by that aspect too. So we did not have time though. The only thing we didn't do is before we get to my last statement, I have a lot of footage from The Purge. So let's roll a little highlight package of The Purge. And now this is both of them.
Definitely.
So this is both the upper lot tour and the lower lot, or the backstage. The backlot tour. So let's check that
restricted. Both continuous hours.
$160,000 for the privilege to purge this skull. 160? Do I need to remind you that all proceeds from tonight's auction go to fund the There's going to be a hanging tonight. Come on. Come on, man. Don't go to sleep on me. Hold still.
Now, children, make sure you have a firm grip on the hands of your tray.
Participate in the karaoke contest. It was delightful. Happy Purge Night. Blessed be America and nation reborn.
So to conclude here this evening, my thoughts are, one thing we didn't do is we did not get a chance to do the Jabberwocky show, so I cannot comment on that whatsoever. Yeah, that's kind of my comment. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of stuff anyway, so it's not my cup of tea. I had the opportunity to see them in Vegas. I did not, so it wasn't like I was going to go see them here. There was just so much other stuff to do that I didn't want to miss out on that to go. Because, I also had to get my coaster credit. I rode the Mummy, which I was very impressed by. I almost got the sense that I liked it better than Orlando.
You dare.
And that's like blasphemy, but I almost liked it better than Orlando. I don't know. And then Jurassic...
Different show. I'm not... Different show.
And then Jurassic Park 2.
I can't even start on that one.
I really liked that experience, and we did that. And then we did Transformers as well, that is how you clone a ride. That they figured that piece out. That the cloning of Transformers from Orlando to Hollywood, you are hard pressed to find differences between those two. I'm sure there are little differences, but I couldn't find them. So. Anyway, overall, I really enjoyed this event. It was a ton of fun. It was amazing to be able to go film it, to go take pictures in them. It was a different feel that I thought, well, maybe it's just going to feel like Orlando, and it didn't have that feel at all. It had its own unique feel. Yeah. And I'm not going to say it's better or worse. I'm saying it's different. It's a different feel. It's definitely something that I think people should do, though. It's still, even if they don't pour as much money into it as they do in Orlando, it's still probably better than anything Six Flags does. Let's be honest, that Six Flags basically pours no money into theirs. It's probably better. It's better than what Cedar Fair does from what I've experienced. It might be a step above Howl-O-Scream. I've only done Tampa, and I would say it's a step above that just on sheer, just the Terror Tram, I think, puts it above that. But overall, I thought it was a really fun event. The Terror Tram is something you have to do at least once in your life. The scare zones are really well done. I was really impressed by those. Super happy. And like I said, Crimson Peak, AVP, this is the end. 3 really rock solid houses, followed up by, Walking Dead, Insidious, and Halloween, all really good houses. And I think I would have a much better opinion of Halloween if I didn't do it last year at Orlando. And even at Orlando this year, I wasn't super enthused by it. Don't stone me, but Halloween was not my favorite last year at Orlando. So there you go. Any final questions from you about it?
No, I think you answered. You talked about the scare zones, and I think that is definitely something that Hollywood probably does do a little bit better. One thing that I know a difference in, and Orlando's gotten better about it. They kind of went too far this way. Hollywood, I don't know if you noticed or could tell, didn't have any real curves. They don't really theme the city as realistically as Orlando did. You have the streets and all that in Orlando. Well, there's step-ups onto sidewalks, which caused the no-follow rule, the no-chase rule, and then the no-sidewalk rule. And that I remember the year that they were so harsh on it, you literally could step on the sidewalk and the character couldn't pursue you anymore. And that's not scary. And you're saying in Hollywood, they followed you, 300 feet out of it, or, whatever. So that's awesome. I guess the only other question I have about in the park, you said the layout's kind of crazy. Orlando this year, I was telling you, and we'll talk about it more next episode. It's the first year it's filled out the whole park in a sense. I felt so satisfied walking from entrance to the very back of the show to see Bill and Ted's, very back of the park, not the back of the show, that you just saw stuff along the whole way, something you don't always get. How does that compare to Hollywood? You say, it's got these different levels and all this stuff. Is it still pretty filled out, or is it pretty sporadic feeling?
To be honest with you, it's hard to say because up on the upper level, you have the most space. It's the most open space. You have the 3 scare zones. You have the Terror Tram. You have the Halloween house. But there's a lot of empty space where they still have the Simpsons area. And the Simpsons area had basically no theme because it's brand new. So they had no Halloween stuff in that whole zone because they want to still sell the Simpsons concept. And then you have Super Silly Happy Funland for the kids, and that was kind of still open, it looked like, from Despicable Me. So that was kind of weird. So the upper level, was very open, had nice stuff in it, but didn't have that sense of filledness. Whereas the lower lot, it's so small to begin with. It's like everything's on top of each other to begin with. It's literally like one midway. It's one midway with everything built on this one midway. And the midway is shorter than, any midway you've seen before. So it's really compact. So everything's in there. And then when you get to the back lots, everything's open again. But it's a lot of queue lines back there. So they're more popular haunts like Crimson Peak, AVP.
Okay. It's
mostly all queue lines and not a lot else to walk around to see. So it's a very odd park. I can't say that I didn't – it had a very Halloween feel to it where even areas, there was some Halloween theming, lighting, music. I don't know, because last year at Orlando, I felt that at certain parts of the park, you were just in a park for a lot of it. Like you think of the whole back section, even the front section, you had the one street up front with the stilt walkers, and then you had the Purge and nothing in between. And so this had a more, because of the layout of the park, it had that more complete feel. The one thing I will mention, though, that I thought was really funny was that the escalators that they have taking you from the upper to lower lots, they actually have a voiceover talking about the park, and they made a special one for Horror Nights that was very irreverent, very condescending, and pretty funny. It was worth the listen.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you kind of little touches
That's
like
awesome.
that made it nice. So I would say it's a park. It's an event that is fun to go to. It's so different than any other theme park you've been to, and this haunt just makes it so much better because there's so many different areas to explore, and it just takes you all over the place. I really enjoy it. The question in my life right now is coming off of last year. I said, there's no way I'm missing Orlando ever again. I'm going to Orlando every year. And now I'm kind of thinking, well, do I want to hit up Hollywood every year too, or do I want to alternate? That's where my thinking is right now, where maybe I alternate between the two places, and 1 year go to Hollywood, 1 year go to Orlando. And, Hollywood has the added benefit. Now, I know Orlando has Howl-O-Scream at Tampa, but Hollywood has the benefit of having Knott's Scary Farm that I hear is quite amazing, and I want to get out there for that one. Maybe next year. Maybe.
That's true. That would be having those two. Having Hollywood, it's not, like you said, not better, not worse, but a great event and unique, just something that you might want to go past. Sorry, I hear myself. And skipping out on Orlando and doing that. But if you throw in the possibility of hitting Hollywood and Knott's, I mean, that's a solid deal right there.
Oh yeah, maybe we'll have to organize that for next year. Me and you take our first trip to Hollywood.
We might have to do that. Take a weekend, go both. Yeah, because I'm dying to get out there. I was this close to going to Hollywood this year, but I would have canceled my Orlando trip because some airfare things opened up and some friends and some ticket deals. And I mean, we were about to do it, and it was a final decision by me to stick with Orlando. And I'm glad I did because I got a little taste of it last weekend, and I just cannot wait to get back and see everything. And next time I'm going back with Fast Pass and just going to hopefully be able to double up on some of them. So hopefully if you hit the tactic, it's all about the strategy of hitting the park. And Orlando, if you can't get in the holding area and you get to the front gate, if you better be in that front, you better be there at 5 o'clock, 5:30 to be in, because that is your key to seeing 3 houses in the first hour and a half or so. Yeah. If you get in the back of the line, once everybody goes through, you're going to see 1 or 2 houses, and then you're sitting an hour waits, 40 an hour and a half waits. So hopefully,
we
you
talk
both
a little
have
strategy.
great experiences. And
we might talk a little strategy on a later show, because I had a very different strategy. I did that, but then I had a few extra pieces that I liked. And I don't know if it was just a circumstance of the evening that it worked out that way, but the end of the evening is where I made some pretty big gains, and was able to close out the night on a very...
That's a good plan. I always say we'll talk into it, but there's times to hit the houses, there's times to hit the shows, and there's times to hit a house and then sprint to another house. So.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as always, thank you for joining us here on Hauntoverse Uncut. Hopefully you've enjoyed my review of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood, that I just had a blast at. I know Dason had a blast at, and I can't wait to do it again. And here's the shirt this year, All Roads Lead to Fear. So that is the official 2015 Hollywood shirt.
I love it. I like it. It's got all the houses on the back.
Yep, got all the houses. I would turn around, but it'll be hard to see. Anyway, I am, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Brian Bass from Nashville, Tennessee.
And as always, scare on, scare warriors.